Christina Barr, and you're watching Black Tea News. Hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking about there's some new revelations involving the Baldwin situation with the Rush shooting, which it was supposed to be a cold gun on set. He claimed he never pulled the trigger. He was in rehearsal, and he just thought he pointed the gun, and it went off, and it ended up shooting went in through woman in front of him, like through her armpit, I think out through her shoulder, went straight through her and then hit the director, and the director is injured, but the woman was killed. And so Baldwin didn't assume any responsibility for it. He did this really weird interview with George Stephanopoulos, which was idiotic. I don't know why they're so focused on PR rather than surviving this trial situation, but who knows if they'll charge him or not. But there appears to be enough to say about negligence causing this death, at least, because you are supposed to check the guns, and there's police interrogation, which I guess he didn't think it was that much of an interrogation because he didn't think it was going to be charged. And they're like, "Do you want a lawyer?" And he's like, "No." It's like, "Oh, am I being charged?" And they're like, "Oh, no, but this is an investigation." He's like, "Okay, yeah, if I was being charged, that'd be one thing." I'm just like, you moron. I'm still going through the interrogation. It's about like an hour long, but he did say some pretty damning things in there. You're supposed to check that stuff. John Snyder, who was he played the dad on Smallville. A lot of people know him from Dukes of Hazzard. Man, I haven't checked his social media today, but I'm sure he's going ham on him because he did several videos about gun safety and what you're supposed to do, and how Baldwin's story didn't make a lot of sense, but they run that town, so who knows if anything's he's gonna be charged at all, or there were some lawsuits going, but definitely should have checked the gun. So we're gonna be talking about that. Also, economies, man, is looking really bad. We might be going toward the recession. But I mean, Biden's trying to play his games, and keeps talking about, oh well, if you got to look at the unemployment and how we've created so many jobs, more jobs than ever, and I'm just like, dude, that's what happens when you force a recession. You force people to lose their jobs. Make it really, really hard for people to know if they're going to keep their job, especially when you're doing all those mandates and stuff, when you condition people not to work, and then by paying them to stay home, and then those benefits and stuff start running out, people go back to work, and then you start seeing some numbers. So there's just no context involved, but they know that if they include the context, they'll just make them look worse. But I just hate the dishonesty, the blatant dishonesty. But a lot of people I guess don't think too much about it, so they figure they can get away with it. But there's news today that GDP fell through the floor in the first quarter, landing at a negative 1.4%. So not good news for the White House, for Americans, for Democrats, especially heading into November. I've also got some crazy clips of some people that Biden nominated that I want to show you guys. Republicans are going ham on some of these folks in some of these hearings. So yeah, there's some people who've been embarrassing themselves today. So I want to show you guys that as well. But before we jump into everything, which I just ended up posting an article about this, but I do want to talk about Amazon and their bias towards conservatives, especially regarding the transgender issue. But Libs of TikTok ended up leaking something from Amazon where they were talking about Matt Walsh's book Johnny the Walrus, which we've talked about on the show before. But apparently they were just very upset about it, so they took it out of the children's category, and now he's just number one overall last I looked. So congrats. The market has spoken. Before we jump into it, please visit blacktnews.com. You can read that article that I just mentioned on the website, and also other articles that I've written. You guys can check out cool merch that I got, like the My Money, My Business shirt. I'm going to talk about the menthol thing, so I just want to let you all know we got this Trump 2024 Make Crack Whack Again shirt. You guys can check that out on the website, along with other goodies that we have available there. If you like what I do at blacktnews.com, consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com, whether it's 10, 15, 20, $100, whatever you guys want to do. It does help grow the site, and I really do appreciate everyone who's willing to help it grow. I do want to thank Brighton Michigan Pack. I'm in their studio. If I say something today that triggers you, they don't care, I don't care. It really does not work like that, but they just like uplifting conservative voices, and I appreciate being able to use the space. But if you're just gonna have to scroll on, there's no one to tattle on me. I do my own thing here. So before we jump into the news, well, I guess this is news. The Biden administration is like really heading toward putting restrictions on menthol. And they mentioned that before. I don't know if it was the State of the Address, the Union, that he was really mentioned that or some time before, but people are pointing out, and I saw some videos emerging like on TikTok of Black people like, why are you coming for the menthols? And I saw Michael Knowles make a joke like, yep, systemic racism is real, because there is a clear like difference between people who use menthols, and it's like 84% Black people, I think was that the past month or something, who've used menthols have been Black, as opposed to like 34% of whites, something like along those lines. A really, really big difference. And I don't like cigarettes. I don't like marijuana. I don't like alcohol or anything like that either. So I'm not about to be like gung ho about drugs or anything like that. But I am a little puzzled since our society is kind of moving toward this more libertarian view, and like obviously that stuff can cause you harm, but that's definitely not new information. I'm not saying the government shouldn't actively try to stigmatize it, or anything like that, but I just wonder why such a progressive view on the menthols specifically. So, my meme, I did post this on Facebook, but menthol cigarettes, no, but you got crack pipes, yeah. And the crack pipe story, which we've talked about, which the White House has tried to deny and say, oh, we weren't giving crack pipes to people. I don't think the White House's cover up story was very good for that. I'm just going to flat out say I didn't believe them, because there was a spokesperson from DHS that claimed that they were doing it, and then they were like, oh, that's not true. And I'm like, well, who is this person? Like, are you going to say that person was wrong, or it was wrong information or something? Because they're just blaming conservatives how it was reported. And I'm like, why don't you talk about the person from the health department, the health folks at the Biden administration who said this, the Department of Health? Is it true or not true, or were they lying? Are you lying now? Were you lying then? So I thought their story was fishy, but the idea was to give people like good crack pipes so they could smoke it safer, at the very least. If they're going to smoke it, do it safely. So if that's the route that they're going to go with that, but then attack menthols, I don't understand. Which the crack pipe thing, they totally distanced themselves and denied. So granted, we'll just like throw that out for a second. It's just a funny meme, just wanted to show it. But I don't understand the focus on the menthol thing. And it's been something that people have been trying to do for decades. So it's not like something new that the Biden administration just hopped on and the FDA just flipped on a switch or something. And again, I obviously I don't think it's good for you. But there's a lot of things that not good for you, but that we don't outright ban or try to regulate more. I mean, the Biden administration is all gung ho, and I know I have my viewers that have different opinions on like abortion or something, but like talking about like cigarettes can give you cancer, abortion can give you death. You know, I'm just continuously questioning the priorities, which by the way, 3.6 times black women are 3.6 times more likely to have an abortion than a white woman. 28% of all black pregnancies ended in abortion in 2019. So there's definitely an epidemic, but Biden himself said we need abortion for women of color. So I always find that interesting. Always find that interesting. Anyway, menthol thing was strange. That was like news of the day. Wall Street Journal was talking about it. I'm just puzzled. Maybe someone has an answer for me in the comments. But it is interesting and funny how people are pointing out the racial disparity of who uses menthols and the fact that they're going after that. I'm not saying that there's a racial reason specifically. I just think it's interesting commentary. Okay, moving on to Alec Baldwin. As I said, he had this video in the past he did this interview with George Stephanopoulos, which was insane. Let's go back a memory lane and just watch like the promo that they cut for that some time ago because it was pretty wild.
Was someone who was loved by everyone who worked with and liked by everyone who worked with and admired. I mean, even now, I find it hard to believe that. It just doesn't seem real to me.
You haven't said much in public since that tragic accident. Why speak out now? I think the big question, and the one you must have asked yourself 1,000 times, how could this have happened? You've described it as a 1 in a trillion shot, and the gun was in your hand. How do you come to terms with that? It wasn't in the script for the trigger to be pulled.
Well, the trigger wasn't pulled. I didn't pull the trigger.
So you never pulled the trigger?
No. I would never point a gun at anyone and pull a trigger at them, never.
What did you think happened? How did a real bullet get on that set?
I have no idea. Someone put a live bullet in a gun, a bullet that wasn't even supposed to be on the property.
How do you respond to actors like George Clooney who say that every time they were handed a gun, they checked it themselves? Your emotions are so clearly so right there on the surface. You felt shock, you felt anger, you felt sadness. Do you feel guilt? You said you're not a victim, but is this the worst thing that's ever happened to you?
Yes. Yeah. Because I think back and I think of what could I have done.
Alec Baldwin.
Okay, so I'm going to answer you what could have been done. He could have checked the gun. He could have checked the gun. That's a simple answer. So anyway, in the interrogation, which shows up, in the room, and there is video of him the moment when he finds out that she did pass and stuff. That's like the big one kind of circulating around. But I'm seeing commentary like, oh, he still should be like totally screwed. Because he like admitted that they were like, hey, do you want to check the gun? He's like, no, I'm good. He did his own words. That's not what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to thoroughly check that themselves. And this is not only a film he was hired on for an actor. This is like his film. He's like a producer on this film. So there's a lot of issues there. So he Stephanopoulos brought up George Clooney. I brought up John Snyder earlier. John Snyder has ripped him apart for not checking the gun, for the I didn't pull the trigger sort of narrative that he had going on. But he's like, this is what you're supposed to do. Like he even had like a similar sort of gun, or maybe it was even the same kind. He did a video when he's like showing people how you thoroughly check that there is no bullet in the chamber at all. So how did that live round get in there? I don't know. There's rumors that I'm sorry, Hannah was the armorer. that people would go out and just kind of do target practice or whatever stuff like that. There shouldn't be any ammunition like in a certain set of feet like around the set, like so there's some negligence and other stuff that they're still investigating on that. And I don't know how they got in the gun, but the point is that Alec Baldwin had the gun. He aimed it, and he did have his finger probably on the, obviously he had to have pulled the trigger, and he ended up shooting this woman. I don't think it was on purpose, and I don't think most people are saying that, though they don't like Alec Baldwin, many critics of it. But the issue with Alec Baldwin is that there's a lack of accountability and the sheer stupidity to go into the interrogation room, and you're talking to the police, and they said, "Would you like a lawyer?" And he's like, eh. He's like, "Wait, am I being charged?" And like, "Well, we have to alert you of your rights." They did tell him no, and that was true at the time, but it was an investigation, and they let them know, like, it's procedure, but we are doing an investigation. And he was clearly the one holding the gun. So maybe in his head, he's just like, "I'm cool, I'm good. We're just having a conversation about how this woman was shot, went through her, and it shot the other guy." And that's crazy to me. So just anyone out there, pro tip, have a lawyer. Have a lawyer. Have a lawyer. So there's that. There's that. He shouldn't have spoke without a lawyer present. And they did alert him, like, hey, anytime you can stop, because he didn't have a lawyer present. But he just was vomiting out stuff in the interrogation with the police. And so he explained like how they would check the guns, and they would announce how there's like a cold gun and stuff, and they were shooting, doing like practice and whatever. And then they went to lunch, and then I think that when they came back from lunch, that's when it happened. But they did, he said, like, they'd ask, like, "Do you want to check it?" And sometimes other people would, there'd be a second person who would check it, but they asked him, like, "Do you want to check it?" And he's like, "I'm good," because he just assumed, because they do the same thing every day, and they're normally good, and there's normally nothing that goes wrong, that he did not have to take that precaution of gun safety and make sure that there was nothing in there. Had he had done that, then she would still be alive. And there's just no way you can get around that. And so, and he's like, "I'm asking what else I could have done. You could have checked the gun and do what you're supposed to do as an act, just practicing gun safety and what they teach you as an actor, how to handle gun safety." So he really, really royally screwed up. Really, really screwed up. And I don't understand why he do all these interviews with Stephanopoulos or whatever, and to try to save his image, which I believe, just as a human being, you could assume that he feels bad about it, and you don't necessarily want to say he's faking the tears or anything like that. But you do have to keep in mind that these people are actors, and they can literally cry on cue, which John Schneider also demonstrated that as well as he was ripping Baldwin apart. I guess sometime last year when all the story was just coming out. But once he started doing those interviews, you had the widower, Matthew Hutchins, who's the husband of the cinematographer who was shot, was upset. And they're upset also with some of this footage coming out, because now they have to relive this horrific thing again. But Baldwin said he didn't pull the trigger. So here's a video. Now, this isn't the video of the shooting. This is a video of like one of the rehearsals.
Second time here, he actually will not only have his finger on the trigger, but you'll see him briefly pull that hammer back on the gun, which, again, if you pull that hammer back far enough with your finger depressing the trigger, it'll fire a round off. There you go. You could see how he pulled the trigger, or he's got his finger on the trigger, and he pulled the hammer back and released it with a round in the chamber underneath that hammer. That's going to result in, detonation of that round.
Yeah, and Stephen, you were kind of going to do somewhat of a demonstration for us. I know it was dark in that rehearsal video. For our viewers, though, as we just walked them through what you were essentially saying, give us a sense of what that exactly means, and why, if there is a live round in the weapon that it could go off based on how Baldwin was was manipulating the weapon?
Yeah, so this is a single action revolver. It's the same style of gun that Baldwin was using on set that you could see in that video. And I have cleared the gun, make sure it's unloaded physically and visually, and there's no one behind my camera as well. But you could see that Baldwin was holding the gun with his finger on this trigger, and then you can see him from the angle that the video is taken of Baldwin. You have to look closely, but essentially he's pulling back this hammer and then releasing it. And as you can see there, if my finger's on that trigger, and I don't have to be putting all that much weight on it, and I pull this hammer back, it's going to release. And if there were a round in this gun, it would fire because of that. The second time here.
Yeah, so he really should have did that interview. But when you have someone involved so much with the PR and they're focused so much on their image and how they're going to control the narrative with the public, because maybe they feel the public is their judge and their jury and their executioner, you need your lawyer to be like, no, that's stupid. Why would you do, like, I understand your career, your job and whatever, but like, that's one thing, okay? And you going to jail is like another thing, and I'm trying to keep you out of jail. So I don't understand why the PR, won out over, because I'm sure they had to have some legal counsel that was making some kind of sense and would have advised against that interview. That upset a lot of people. But he just wanted people to see him cry. And like, we went over that video when it came out, the interview. I thought it was extraordinary in a very bad way. So I don't know. I don't know what's gonna happen with Alec Baldwin. Again, it's very evident that he was negligent, and it resulted in someone's death. And it's not like first degree or something like that, no. But to just act like there's no accountability, and you're like, who put it in there? Like, that is an interesting question, should be answered, about who put the bullet in there. But he is the one who had the gun, who pointed the gun, who did have his finger on the trigger, who didn't check the gun, said, no, I'm good, didn't have to check the gun. So that's still on him regardless. On his movie set. On his movie set too. So I don't know if he's going to end up being charged. It seems like they got enough stuff to do something and have for a while. So the hesitancy there, I don't know, makes me question if they are going to do something in that regard. I also wonder why they did release all this stuff. Maybe are they doing like a PR, like get the public ready so they understand what happens next? I don't know, but it's a tragedy. It is a tragedy. Looking at Alec Baldwin, he said this is the worst thing that's ever happened to him. I'm sure. But that doesn't wash that he is responsible for what happened. And I'm not saying I necessarily want Alec Baldwin to go to jail for this tragedy or anything like that. But I know there's people who hate him who wouldn't shed a tear over that happening. But he still did it, and at least some accountability would really do him well. But saying, I wish I could have done something different, going back and like, what you could have did differently was check the gun. That was your responsibility, and there's just no way to pass the buck with that, man. So, geez. Okay, next, I want to show you guys this video from Amazon. We've known for a while that they've had some bias. There's just, we know Bezos is biased. I'm sure they hire a lot of biased folks and other stuff like that. And at times it makes me concerned, as a writer who has my stuff on Amazon. It is a bit concerning, sometimes, when people were censored with different things. Um, but they seem really, really dead set against people who are speaking out against the transgender ideology, especially if they have a prominent voice on the matter. Because some time ago, you had the book, um, by Ryan T. Anderson, When Harry Became Sally. That book was flat out removed from Amazon. And so when they're and the person and the author didn't know until someone reached out and said, "Hey, I tried to order it, I can't find it." So he didn't even get like a courtesy email from Amazon or something. They just pulled it down. People should, by the way, try to get physical books if they can. And I know a lot of people like their Kindle that you don't have to have all that stuff. That is very convenient at your fingertips and stuff. But the day may come when may be important for you to physically have things. So anyway, they couldn't order his book. And so he reached out and found out that they had taken it down. And the reason why they said that they took it down is because they said they don't sell books that classify LGBTQI plus whatever as a mental illness. And he's like, my book doesn't do that. And Chad Felix Green, who is gay, but he had gender dysphoria, he said that book really, really helped him. And he ended up writing an article in defense of When Harry Met Sally, when Harry Became Sally. But Amazon, they sold their story about why they took it down. And you actually had some Republicans who had reached out demanding like Amazon answer the question. And when they answered the question, it was just a lie, frankly. Also, Abigail Schreier, who wrote Irreversible Damage, her book, her publisher received a word from Amazon that they could not run ads on her book. And she's talked to some insiders from Amazon and stuff. And her book is, according to her, suppressed by Amazon. Now she's done well. She sold a lot of copies, went on, tours and stuff, and has received lots of good reviews and et cetera, whatever. But she is a very hated figure. What's it like to be so hated is actually the number one question that she gets asked all the time. But Irreversible Damage is about the idea that a lot of this transgenderism movement is more of a social contagion, and a lot of young people who believe that they're transgender are people who would normally be sort of suffering from other sort of maybe depression, anxiety, and maybe they would do other sort of methods, even maybe to harm themselves in a different age. But the trend nowadays is to self-diagnose as transgender and to go down that rabbit hole. So that was the premise of her book, which she didn't necessarily want to write. She wrote it out of a need when she had a lot of desperate parents reaching out to her, and she made that book. So Matt Walsh, he made a children's book called Johnny the Walrus. And so Johnny the Walrus is a book about a boy who just believes that he likes to pretend that he's different things. He likes to pretend that he's different things. And his mother, liked to, help his imagination or whatever. And so she would like, post stuff online like, oh, he's pretending to be a walrus. And then the people online are like, no, Johnny is actually a walrus. He's actually a walrus. And so the mother was like, oh, I gotta actually help this kid live his truth. And so it's about the mother taking precautions to help her son live that truth, which include like having him, wear like, put like wooden spoons in his mouth, and wearing paint. And they even go to a doctor about like cutting him up to make him like a walrus. So the criticism on the book is so funny because it's clearly poking fun at the parents who have the attitude of, oh, my kid knows, or society says so I have to, I don't know, just take out all parental good sense and just go in this direction to appease society or to appease myself, even though it's clearly harming my child. So he's really poking fun at adults. He's not being a bully toward. It's not meant to be harmful towards transgender people, to trans kids, but that's what people believe. They're totally missing the true, real criticism of the book. So I want to play for you some of the discussion around Amazon around this book.
Recommendations that this customer received and that other customers frequently reach out to us about that they're receiving. It's about a book called Johnny the Walrus. And I want to be very clear, the next two are about books. And I saw someone say, oh joy, we're going to talk about one of them, because it's been a very traumatic experience for transgender Amazonians and our transgender customers.
I just love how everything is just so traumatic and problematic, and just how I don't know, weak society is. Like, I don't love it. Like, I'm just saying that in a mocking sort of way, I suppose. I don't know what happened to society. Let's go back to the video.
What I don't want to come out of this is slamming the books team with a bunch of tickets. They're already aware of this. There are things in the space that are happening. But Johnny the Walrus is a bit of a problematic book. Not a bit. It is not a bit of a problem. It's one hell of a problem. And I would preface this about what the book's about, but the customer we're going to listen to does a great job. So let's go ahead and listen to this customer.
To report a book that you are selling, I just checked your website and the book is still up on there. I hate to tell you, but it says that the book that it is shipped and sold from you, it is by Matt Walsh. It is teaching kids to bully transgenders, to bully them into committing suicide, the LGBTQIA, especially transgenders. The story is about a kid who likes to pretend he's different things, and one day he pretends he's a walrus, and the community tells him he either has to be a human or he has to be a walrus, or they're going to kill him. He can't be both. He can't pretend anymore.
Okay, so this just isn't true. It's just not true. That's not what the book doesn't teach kids to bully trans kids. It doesn't it shows that basically people are socially pressured into bullying kids into accepting this ideology. Really, it's more of a criticism on the bullies, not to bully the poor children who are the victims. The son is clearly the victim in the story. It doesn't teach you to go out and victimize him. It criticizes people who are victimizing the child, and it's really really not hard. It's not. It's funny that it's broken down in a children's book, yet you still have people on the left who are so dense that they can't wrap their minds around the concept of the book. I think it was yesterday, or maybe the day before, I played a video from a couple years ago on ABC when they had the kid who is a drag kid, and it was on Good Morning America, and this is a kid who his parents will take him to gay bars or whatever, and they'll throw money at the kids. And he said, the little boy said, my parents support me because they let me do what I want. That's not how parents support the kids, because sometimes kids are wrong and the kids they definitely don't know what's best for them. They can have an opinion, but you have to be the parent and try to protect them. So I do think there are parents who are, who have kids who believe that they're trans, and they're trying to do what's right by them. But man, some people are just utterly insane. Libs of TikTok posted a video the other day of a woman who was on her second pediatrician because she's upset, complaining because they, I guess they're not affirming what she just believes as far as her kid needing to transition. So there's some wackadoodles out there. And some of it's probably for attention. I'm not saying that they're purposely doing it because they want attention. Something is wrong with a lot of these parents too. But no, Matt Walsh's book does not teach kids to bully. And the fact that Amazon was like, we're going to let this customer explain because they said everything so well. They're literally not describing the book correctly. They're literally lying about what the book is. So she goes on to talk about how Matt Walsh was bragging about being an anti-LGBT author, the top rated #1. That's actually not what happened. He said that I now have the #1 LGBT book in the country. Any further criticism of me and my book is not homophobic. Checkmate. So he didn't classify himself as an anti-LGBT author. But is he trolling them? Yes. He's trolling them in their rhetoric and how they don't want people criticized from their side of the aisle, and tries to uphold them as a particular sort of other, as if that makes you virtuous or above criticism or whatever. So he's definitely mocking that attitude as well. But he didn't say that he's bragging about being an anti-LGBT author. And it's the book isn't anti-LGBT. It really does poke fun at the people who will not take accountability as parents and who will listen to society and take drastic measures. So if you want to say it pokes fun at the parents of these folks, sure, that's accurate. But does it teach kids to go unalive themselves? No, absolutely not. And that's wasn't a honest way to put it. So anyway, they go on to talk about in this meeting that because he was saying this stuff and it was listed as a children's book, that Amazon decided to remove it from the children's listing, and they put it in politics, and they put it in political humor. Now it did get a little dark, so I can maybe see them taking it out of the children's book, but there's some weird stuff and dark stuff that ends up in children's books, so that's probably not a good argument either. They took it out of the children's book section and the LGBT section because they didn't like it being listed there, and they didn't like the way that he was framing himself. And that's what they said in their recordings. So should Amazon be doing that? No. And the fact that they have such an open bias among themselves is concerning. But that's not where it ended. So Amazon reached out to Daily Wire Books in our effort to continuously improve customer experience. We periodically review active campaigns on the basis of recent review. Below is the status of your ads in the campaign. DW Books sponsor products. The following ads are non-compliant to creative acceptance policies. Your ad titled "What is a Woman? One Man's Journey to Answer Questions of the Generation" does not comply with our current creative acceptance policies, specifically the following reasons. Your ad contains content that appears to infer, claim, or diagnose treatment, reverse, or question gender identity or sexual orientation. Please remove the content from your ad. So they got rid of the ads on that. And I believe they also got rid of the ads on Johnny the Walrus as well. And but there are other children's books that do. So it's interesting that they remove the ads from this, but they also have other books that do affirm things like gender affirmation. That's treatment. So, or is the problem treat, reverse, or says your ad contains content that appears to infer or claim to diagnose, treat, reverse, or question gender identity or sexual orientation. So yeah, they have stuff from their side of the aisle that that does those things, but still can obviously get ads. So it is a targeted move against Matt Walsh in his books, but regardless, doesn't matter. He got to number one. His What is a Woman book, which he has a documentary coming out where he's just going around asking that question, what is a woman? And there's people who don't want to answer it. It seems like a very simple question, but it's one simple question that makes the whole ideology just sort of crumble. You saw Ketanji Jackson not be able to answer that, and she was viciously mocked, but she's still in the Supreme Court anyway, but she was mocked very badly for it. So he has a book about that as well. And so they don't want to run ads for it, sure, whatever, but it's number one in like biology now. And Johnny the Walrus became number one overall. So in the whole entire store. So Amazon can try it, but people are succeeding regardless. But it is concerning for like smaller authors and commentators and so on. Not everyone has the backing of the Daily Wire and etc. So it makes you question how many other people are suppressed for telling the truth that don't have a big sort of bullhorn to let people know that it's happening to them. There was a lot of people who started coming back on Twitter the other day. They said their accounts were just like magically reactivated once Elon bought it. And people are questioning why that is. And some people just were like, they just got an email that said it was reversed or whatever. And it's been deactivated for a long time. They're like, it wasn't appealed. It just came back. But people couldn't make big with people with smaller accounts couldn't make a big like fuss like other people. Like when if libs of TikTok went missing, the whole world would know. Like if Daily Wire, one of them went missing, the whole world would know. When Babylon Bee was suspended, it became a huge thing. And then Elon Musk went and bought Twitter. When Defiant L's was suspended, like that started trending. But if other accounts got suspended for tweeting things like men can't be women, women can't be men, not everybody can speak up about that. So it does concern me. And I do hope that other platforms can start adhering to fair policies and free speech as the way that Elon wants to run Twitter. But I think he can only buy so many things at one time. So we'll see what ends up happening. But Amazon, I hope they have such a big monopoly sort of on the world and in their corner market with online. It only got more powerful during the pandemic. Surprise, surprise. As a lot of these mom and pop shops got closed down, people went out of business, but Amazon was just obviously booming. People were buying stuff online. And people are like, I hate billionaires. But I'm like, well, y'all sure did make Jeff Bezos really, really rich during the pandemic. And Amazon made a lot of money and a lot of people had to like turn to them to survive and etc. So I don't know if you can make an alternative sort of to like what Amazon is doing, but some people can try it. Maybe someone ought to, because they're not fair. They don't believe in an equal playing field. Okay, so I want to show you a couple of clips from hearings. So of course Biden is like addicted to picking really, really extreme nominees. So here's one of the videos for someone who's running for a judgeship.
This is a really simple question, Counselor. Do you believe that cops kill unarmed black men in America every single day? You said it at Princeton.
Senator, I said it in my role as an advocate.
Oh, okay. You didn't mean it.
Senator, I said it in my role as an advocate to make a rhetorical point.
So when you say something that's incorrect, it's okay to excuse it by saying, oh, I was being an advocate? What do you believe? Do you personally believe that cops kill unarmed black men every single day in America?
Senator, I believe law enforcement have an important and challenging job in this country.
That's not what you said, though, Counselor.
Senator, I say before you here today that I do believe law enforcement have a difficult and challenging job, and I also understand the difference
I just think that's an extraordinary statement to make with no data to back up. None whatsoever. There's no basis for you saying that. And you knew it then and you know it now. How can one possibly believe that you're going to be unbiased on the federal bench?
Senator, I believe my record shows that I have worked collaboratively with law enforcement in Boston, Chicago, Mississippi, and Milwaukee to solve complex problems to promote constitutional, effective, and
Your
safe
record
policing.
shows that you believe cops are guilty until proven innocent. Your record shows that if a cop, if a cop shoots a criminal, it's the cop's fault. And if a criminal shoots a cop, it's the gun's fault. I've read your record. Ms. Merle, and I don't appreciate you not answering the question straight up. I would respect you a lot more if you just tell us what you believe and not try to hide it.
So, yeah, if there's a lot of people who are just so deranged, and she said to make a rhetorical point, it's just a lie. When is that far removed from reality? Isn't this a lie to push a narrative? That's what it is. You could say it was an exaggeration. It's another exaggeration that's so far removed from reality, because like in 2019 was the number was like 14 or something unarmed black men shot by police. So the numbers are very small. To get to a year, we're not even like over the 100 threshold, and you're saying every day. But the more liberal you are, we've talked about this several times, and there's data to back this up. The more liberal you are, the more wrong you tend to be about police shooting statistics. Now, was this person who wants to be a judge, a federal judge? Is that person someone who should have such a far removed sense of the world? I don't think so, because I think that bias will probably come into play at the courtroom. But I don't know if there's enough people to block this. Some of these crazy folks, a lot of crazy folks with the Biden admin have gotten in. Here's another one who used to work for the Southern Poverty Law Center.
What is a white supremacist?
Senator, my general understanding is that a white supremacist is someone who hates people simply based on the color of their skin.
Okay, your current employer has labeled 3 members of this committee, myself, Senator Hawley, and Senator Blackburn, as white supremacists. Do you agree with that characterization?
Senator, I have never referred to you or any member of this committee.
Has the Southern Poverty Law Center done so?
I'm not familiar with the exhaustive list of policymakers that might have been researched and profiled by another department within the organization that
How many members of the United States Senate do you believe are white supremacists?
Senator, again, sitting here before you, I would not call any single member of Congress.
But you're proud to work for an organization that does.
I'm proud to do voting rights work on behalf of an organization that provides pro bono counsel to individuals, especially low-income individuals.
So let me ask you, how could anyone who is not on the radical left, how could someone who's pro-life, how could someone who's conservative, how can someone who's religious have any degree of confidence if they were to appear in a court with you as a judge? You've spent a lifetime working for groups that smear half this country as white supremacists and Klansmen. That is offensive. My dad came as an immigrant to this country from Cuba with nothing. That is hateful language. How could any litigant expect to get a fair shot if you were a judge, given your advocacy and history of extreme advocacy?
Because, Senator Cruz, my father came to this country with nothing in his pocket as well.
Now, to be fair, to be really fair, I think she handled those questions as well as she can in that kind of situation, pushing back as far as what she believes her work was at the Southern Poverty Law Center. So I'll give it to her. I thought she did a good job pushing back. However, the Southern Poverty Law Center is trash. And they will name people who are clearly not white supremacists, not racist or whatever, and they will list them as a hateful group, so people can point like, aha, this group by Billy Graham or someone got listed by the Southern Poverty Law Center, it's racist. And it's like, no, they like will pick these groups to just form more rhetoric like that. So they do lie, they do smear. So they do those sort of awful things, and I don't think that is really a secret to the folks that work there. By the way, I believe in Michigan, our Secretary of State did work there as well. So yeah, I'd just be leery of anyone who did work there. This last video I want to show you guys is not a confirmation hearing from one of the Biden's nominees, but Representative Jeffries just looked like a fool today, and I wanted to share.
Mr. Paoletta, you've echoed a similar sentiment. I think your quote is, many on the left hate Justice Thomas because he is a black conservative who has never bowed to those who demand that he must think a certain way because of the color of his skin. What evidence do you have to support that incendiary charge?
When Chairman Benny Thompson calls him an Uncle Tom because of his views on voter ID and affirmative action, when in fact more black Americans support voter ID and with respect to affirmative action in college education, they're 62% opposed to it. So that is the most vile, disgusting thing you can say. And so yes, that's the evidence. That's the evidence that I just gave you.
Reclaiming my time.
Yes.
I reclaim my time because he had an answer. Oh my gosh. Don't ask questions that you don't want the answers for, sir. Don't ask questions that you don't want the answer for. Yeah, it's offensive when you call black people Uncle Tom, which Uncle Tom was the hero of that story based off of a real life person who was a hero. But the book Uncle Tom's Cabin literally helped to turn the tide of the Civil War. That's not an exaggeration. Not an exaggeration. So the fact that it is a slur is awful, absolutely terrible. But people do use it as a slur. And so when you say that to a black person, how they mean it is that you are some kind of race traitor. And people feel that way, and it gets thrown a lot around with politics, because if you don't think a certain way, the way that you're allowed to think in the box or whatever, they will call you a traitor, a Sambo, a coon. Candace Owens is unfortunately used as a racial slur. I'd really like to talk to her about that one day. I wonder what sort of commentary she'd have. I'm sure she's aware of it. People call me little Candace Owens, and I'm like, why am I little Candace Owens? I'm clearly quite larger than her. She is a very tiny lady, and I'm rather hefty. So if anyone is going to be big Candace, I think I should be at least the big Candace, and I don't understand why I'd be classified as little Candace. But I just thought this was hilarious that he wanted an example, and then he starts shouting, I reclaim my time, I reclaim my time. I mean, it's just absolutely pathetic. But let's just finish out the clip.
There are a lot of vile, disgusting things that can be
Well, you just
said.
asked me for an example.
The notion that is, right, when some members on this side of the aisle and others have been called the N-word throughout different points of our life, belies the point that you have a particular bias. And it's an overstatement, which is not surprising when you look at the balance of your testimony. And
he's reaching so far, so wide and far with that. The N-word is well, it could be very affectionate to some people and cool and whatever, but what you can tell normally when someone means to you in a very derogatory way. But Uncle Tom is also a very derogatory statement, and to just throw in the N-word to just try to wash out the fact that someone else called Clarence Thomas an Uncle Tom, it doesn't work. You just look like a clown.
if Chairman Benny Thompson has an observation to make, he's entitled to free speech. You apparently believe that Jenny Thomas, regardless of how many conflicts she has, is entitled to her own political opinions as well.
Can I give you another example?
No. Let me go to...
He's like, can I give you another? No, because I didn't expect you to have one the first time. I reclaim my time. I don't want you to talk no more. I didn't think that you'd be able to prove your claim. And we just got to move on. Clown. Absolute clownery, buffoonery. Absolute clown. And then when he talks about the person who used the Uncle Tom reference, like, well, he has free speech. Everybody's got free speech. The people called you the N-word or accusations, that's free speech too, but that's not speech that you agree with or want to champion or say is right. So you're just mad because he had examples. Like, he had receipts. Just, it's funny though. I reclaim my time. What a clown. What a clown. But that's what the Democrats got. So last thing I just wanted to share, I shared this on Facebook, but Elon Musk had tweeted this out, this little chart of his sort of progression, and a lot of people I hear sort of are having this journey where they were more in the center, maybe kind of, in his case it was more to the left, and then the left just kept moving and as they got closer to the center, but the left is the one who just extremely moved. And then they came a little over to the right, and then the left was way over to the far left. And when they look back at this person who used to be their friend, they're now a bigot. And so I hear this so much from people. I hear this so much from people who've been red pilled, especially in recent years. I wonder if Elon Musk, that little jump to the center was after he had to pay like 11 billion in taxes. Who knows? I did retweet that, so we'll see. If he's been tweeting a lot, so maybe I'll get a golden sort of reply. Who knows? But a lot of people really feel this way, that the left has gone too far. And someone replied on Facebook under this image, and they're like, they still consider themselves to be lefties, and they still care about racism and other kind of stuff like that, which I thought was a weird comment, because I'm like, you don't think people on the right care about those things? Anyway, but they don't, they're not for all this gender stuff and the sexuality to the kids. That's where people are drawing the line. And the Democrats still going so hard left, the White House having the policies of the gender affirmation for kids, which includes therapy, like hormones and gender surgery and all kinds of other things, not just pronouns, going the full distance with that. That's what Biden described as what you would do for your children if they're trans and you love them. I don't get it. And I don't think there's any sort of political advantage to it. So is it, they're just willing to go down in flames with their ideology? Perhaps, because they're not making good choices about anything. The border is a hot mess, and with the ending of Title 42, it's just gonna get like extraordinarily worse. Mayorkas, oh my gosh, she was grilled the other day, and he said we inherited a system, this mess or whatever. He's like, but we're doing a good job, and it was just so delusional. I'm like, no, you did not inherit a mess, but you did create a mess when you basically made it seem like you were going to have open border policies, and there are people arriving in like Biden shirts, from everywhere, and they've even had people on the terrorist watch list that's been like stopped, and he would not answer about whether some of them had been released into the United States. So that's a pretty scary thing. They had children in cages and all the other kind of stuff, but they had too many people at the facilities, so now they're just releasing them into the interior of the United States. But don't worry, they have cell phones. They gave them cell phones because they expect them to answer the calls when they have to show up for their court dates and whatnot, and keep in track, up to date with the border patrol or the government or whoever is watching them. It's just crazy. One bad policy after the other. Afghanistan, the economy, COVID, everything is so bad, it seems like it has to be on purpose. And I don't want to attribute that much malice to everyone, but it's getting really hard to not make that case, because it's just really bad. Anyway, thank you guys for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you do like what I do here at blacktnews.com, consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate. Make sure that you guys are liking Black Tea News and following across all my different social medias on Facebook, on YouTube, on TikTok. All my handles are at Black Tea News with the exception of Twitter. That one is at True Black Tea. If you're watching on Facebook and YouTube, there's links in the description. So go ahead and follow me across those different accounts. Even if you like watching on Facebook, go ahead and still follow on YouTube because that does help me out. So please do that. Please check out different merch that we have in the store. I'll show this one again, the Trump 2024 Make Crack Whack Again shirt. Also got the Frederick Douglass shirt, The Constitution is a Glorious Liberty document. Got Black Tea mug, got the You Are Not the Special mug. And I suppose that's it. There's some stuff about the Johnny Depp trial that's pretty interesting. I know I keep saying I'm going to talk about it. I think there's one particular thing about her donations that she said that she would make from her settlement with a divorce that she hasn't done yet. That's making a lot of people upset because I guess a lot of people took her side because she promised she would take that money and like give it to charity, and she has not quite done that yet. So there's a lot of stuff that's making her look bad. I mean, Johnny looks bad too. I mean, it's just like a toxic sort of codependency going on. But I think he'll probably win that case. But we'll see. He's winning in the eyes of Americans. But it's an interesting trial for sure. Anyway, I'll see you guys tomorrow. God bless.